I remember this 6-year-old boy who one day was brought to this huge building that he had never been to before. His mother was holding his hand as they approached the long staircase until they got close, and then she let go. The boy had no idea where he was being brought to. All he was told is that he needed to dress nicely and be on his very best behavior. Once they finally made it inside, they had to pass through one of those big machines. You know the one. They had to put all of their belongings in one of those little white bins and wait to be waved through one by one. And when they finally made it through, they ended up passing so many people who were all wearing suits and carrying briefcases and just walking like they knew exactly where they were going. This boy did not know where he was going. He overheard these people say things like joint custody, placement, visitation. The boy had so many questions boiling inside of his 6-year-old body, but he kept them all inside and just kept walking. They finally arrived to this large room that had benches on both sides and microphones attached to the tables in the front. His mother sat on one side and his father on the other. And he's in the middle, and he's looking straight up at this dark figure in a black robe sitting up so high. If you could not tell where this boy was by now, the place that he was in was a courtroom. The boy was told to wait outside of the courtroom in a hard steel chair with his feet hanging, barely touching the ground. That boy was me. And what I did not realize at the time was that the decisions that would come out of that courtroom that I wasn't in were going to impact my life for the next 12 years to come. After that day, the life that I knew and held dear became legally inaccessible to me. Now, Mommy and Daddy had schedules, specific days and times that I could see each of them. Now there was a lady with a clipboard following us around on something called a supervised visitation. I would be shipped back and forth and back and forth and back and forth between my parents' homes. I felt like an Amazon package. And so I remember going home one day with tears arriving in waves, asking my mother, why is this happening? And being told the 5 scariest words I have ever heard in my life to this day. This was the judge's decision. And so my immediate rebuttal was, well, then how do I become the judge? At 6 years old. And I meant that. I was dead serious. Because although I didn't understand everything that would entail, and I didn't understand everything that was happening, what I did know was that it was wrong, that decisions could be made about me without me. Over a decade passed, and God opened the door for me to re-enter the very place that broke me, the courtroom. You see, I was taking practical law at my high school, and one day my instructor pulled me aside for a conversation. He began telling me about this program where kids were the attorneys and jurors. I laughed in his face. My mind could not allow me to believe in any alternate universe where a child's opinion mattered in a courtroom. Because if you remember anything about the story I just told you, I had a pretty good idea of what a courtroom looked like. I mean, the image from 10 years ago was seared into my core memory. What I remembered of a courtroom looked something like this. A bunch of adults, perfectly pressed shirts, serious faces, people who likely had to take time off of work to be there, most of them probably not wanting to be. None of them knowing the defendant, yet all of them having the power to decide what happened to them. But when I got the chance to see this teen court program for myself, this is what I saw. Kids, students, surely this was a dream. It was like a fantasy. Really, I mean, imagine being this kid who grew up with the anecdotal understanding that what a child had to say in a courtroom does not matter, and then walking into one that only had kids there to listen. Well, this place is not fanciful. It's real, and it's called Teen Court. It's a juvenile diversion program that was designed to help young people who have made their first time, low-level mistake, ultimately a mistake that broke the law, where we respond with intervention and support rather than condemnation. You see, instead of sending them into the traditional system, we offer them a courtroom where a jury of their actual peers decides what happens next. In teen court, young people take on all of the critical roles: the clerk, the bailiff, prosecution, defense, that's me, and most importantly, the jury. All of this happens with 2 adult attorneys supervising and mentoring the acting counsel, and all before an actual judge presiding, like Judge David Law here. I was appointed as a juvenile defender within this program, and now, I have to be honest with you guys. At first, I wanted to be a prosecutor, because look, I had watched Suits, and so I just wanted to rip somebody to shreds on the stand. But this was a child's life. And so when I entered the courtroom and saw these children and their mothers sobbing in the stands behind me, I knew I had to defend. Teen court sessions look just like a traditional courts do. We have opening statements, questioning, cross-examination, but here is the difference. In teen court, the defendant has already admitted that they made the mistake. It was their first time. They have never been in trouble before. They were caught up with the wrong crowd at the wrong time, but they own up to their mistake. And so the trial becomes less about what happened and more about why. We've all heard of peer pressure, and we know that it often leads young people to make poor decisions. Teen court flips this. We use the positive power of peer pressure, accountability from people who actually understand you, to keep kids from making the same mistake twice. And here's the thing, it works. In our model, we have seen a 90% success rate in preventing youth recidivism. 90%. And so not only is teen court more compassionate, it is statistically more effective. For the past 3 years, I have rented the responsibility of defending young people in this court. My job is to stand beside these young people who otherwise would have nobody to speak for them, to make sure that they don't walk through the process alone. And after spending so many years within this web, I began to question, why didn't I know that a program like this existed before? Is every kid everywhere being afforded this same opportunity of being judged by their actual peers, other kids? And it took me back to that time when I was 6 years old, voiceless in the custody courtroom. And then I looked at the teenagers that I was defending. Kids who had made mistakes, yes, but who were in some way sitting in that very same position. Voiceless, powerless, waiting metaphorically outside the room while adults decided their future. Whether you are 6 years old in the crossfires of a custody case or 16 facing charges, being excluded from decisions and conversations about your own life feels the same. But it's not just children in courtrooms. Right now, there are communities who have watched their water turn toxic, their air become unbreathable, and their homes flood year after year. And those with the power, those deciding their fate, are nowhere near the damage. There are millions of women watching rooms full of men decide, make decisions about their rights. And there are students here and across the nation who have had to learn which corners of their classrooms offer cover, which windows might save their lives, as gun violence turns their campuses into crime scenes, and those with the power to stop it still need to act. Exclusion does not only happen in a courtroom, but everywhere that those with power make decisions about people that they refuse to hear. And in all of these places, somebody is asking the very same question that I asked at 6 years old. Why does no one care what I think? Well, for children, teen court offers them an answer. It lets them in. It gives them the role of asking the questions. It gives them the power of deciding what happens next. And not just as observers, but as people who understand the stakes because they are the ones living through them. This is a photo of me standing with Judge Lisa Gorsuch after I represented 2 young people in her courtroom. And in her words, when we treat people like they matter, they act like they do. And I believe her. Because we see what is possible when we allow young people into the rooms where decisions are made about them. We need a world where youth inclusion is standard practice and not just a revolutionary experiment. Where youth inclusion in decisions about them is expected. And where the question is no longer whether or not young people deserve a seat at the table, but why we ever thought that we could build systems for them without them. Because if this is truly the youth justice system, why are we still surrounded by adults? Thank you.